Thank you all. Thank you, pastors. I want to tell you something, that the Lord had plans for this, and He didn't let me know about it. But the reason I'm here is because He loves you. The reason I'm here is because He loves you. Just remember that, and that you should give all the glory and praise to Him, and never lose your fire in this place, because I saw last night, the Lord took me and showed me that there's a border here in the spirit, and I didn't understand that, because I know we're probably close to Canada, right? Yeah. But in the spirit, there are gates, and I saw that this was like a northern gate for the nation. So, because you always wonder, like when the Lord tells you to, like the Briarleys here, He told me to go there. They had 12 people in their church, but they were ready to shut down. She told me last night, if I hadn't come, they were shutting down. And the Lord told me, you go. And my manager was reading through it, and he goes, I'll give you time to pray about this. And I go, we don't need to pray. I'm going. He goes, you're kidding. That's it? I said, that's it. And it's the same with this. He read it through, and I said, no, I know. I met these people. The Lord's telling me to go. And so you being part of this is part of history, because there are gates, and those gates protect God's assets. So inside, there's treasure, and outside, there's centurions that guard these things. And this is not just make believe. This is real. I've met these angels. They're fierce. The warrior angels are fierce, and they don't want to talk about what you had for lunch. And they could care less about your drama. They really do. That's the way it is. Their personality is different. And I'm telling you, when I met one of these angels, I thought, you know what? As I'm laying on the floor, he had to come pick me up. As I was laying on the floor, I thought, I never want another angel visitation again, ever, because of the fear of the Lord. It was so strong. And this guy was, I couldn't really tell. He had to stoop to get in. And he's a spirit being, but he came through the door that was bolted, deadbolted. It bust wide open. And he was probably 8 to 10 feet tall. I can't tell because I was on the floor. But and you guys don't know what I'm talking about unless you've had it happen. But when I was on the sapphire floor in heaven, I didn't ever want to do another thing to displease the Lord. I never wanted to grieve Him. I had the fear of God. It's beyond what you think. It's not being afraid at Halloween. It's not being afraid of a ghost. It's not that kind of fear. It's an awe that He's God and you're not. It's an awe that if He doesn't breathe into you, you're not going to have a breath. It's the same thing that when I was on the operating table and I couldn't get back in my body, and Jesus is standing there, and it wasn't until He told me to go back that my body took me back. I felt a vacuum, and my spirit, feet first, went through into my mouth. I went right in like a sock. And I had permission to come back and live. He commanded me to live. But without His command, you would never know me. Okay, so it's the same with this. If He sends somebody somewhere, then that is going to change history. If not, you would never know me. If I didn't come back, you would never know that I died, because you never knew I existed. And it'd be fine, and how is it that eventually when people die, you miss them, but then as it goes on, you kind of just, and when I was in heaven, the only thing I cared about was people not going to hell. All the people that I knew, I wish that I would have told them more about hell and about heaven and about the Lord Jesus Christ. And I wish that I would have believed Jesus Christ more than I did. So this is what I went through. So when you pass away, you're going to be in the presence of the Lord immediately. And it'll either be an angel or the Lord Himself that comes and gets you. And then you'll be ushered to heaven. Now, when you get there, you're going to meet a lot of people that have been waiting for you to come. And then you're going to be ushered to see Jesus. And then you're going to be ushered to the throne room. But in between that, it might be 1,000 years in between it down here, but it's like seconds up there, if there are even seconds. But when I was there, I knew what God's intention was for my generation and what my part was immediately. And I knew the exact effectiveness. And Jesus never said a word. All he said to me was, well done. You, thou good and faithful. He didn't say thou because he's not King James, but yeah, I know. Please don't write me. Well, you know I have an attitude toward this. Let's have an unfriending session right now. Okay. This is what happened. I was in class at the Assemblies of God school. We were in Greek class, and I'm learning how to be a scholar, you know. I didn't know a thing about what I'm talking about now that I've been there and come back, but I was a scholar, man. I'll tell you, I can impress you. And, you know, I can win an argument and the person would still go to hell, but at least I learned, I won. I won the argument. Yeah. He who wins souls is wise, you know. So anyway, we were discussing the different translations, and we went through like 100 and some translations, and we were comparing it with the Greek. And it was interesting that out of all the translations, you know, like when you came down to it, there was only like a paragraph in the whole New Testament that was even questionable. Of all the New Testament, there's only like a paragraph of words that were questionable out of the whole text. Okay, so that's not bad, is it? Okay, but here's the thing. It was the honest to God truth. I saw it. My professor saw it. The Amplified Version is actually the most accurate as far as it's so colorful, the language of Greek, that when you take it in English is like not a really good language to bring stuff into. Okay, so when I learned this and when I was with Jesus, I saw that it was much more colorful what Jesus was saying than you can write on the text. However, the King James was the most poetical, the most best way to do it, so that you can memorize, and it's a very good way to do it. However, the Amplified, if you wanted to be accurate about the color of each word, when I say color, I mean the flavor, you know, the expanding out the meaning, it was the Amplified. Okay, so when the professor said that, this guy stands up, this student behind me. He goes, well, you know what? I'm just going to stick with the King James, because if it was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me. He did. He said that. And I'm like 1611 and 33 AD, I think. But here's what Jesus said to me. He said that any translation that takes away from the power of God is not the right translation. And the power of what God says is also it's experiential as well. Like when I was training, I could sit in class and learn my job and in how to fly a certain airplane. You know, you could go over it and over it and over it again. But when you got into the real one, it was different. And the reality sets in. And it's just like you study for your test and you get ready. And then when it comes time to it, the reality of that is different than what you supposed and imagined when you were learning it. So, you know, I always tell you about when I was skydiving, and I learned how to skydive and I liked it after a while, but the first time I did not like it. And I screamed like a little girl the whole way down. And all my friends did too, you know. One of them was Israel Houghton, and he just screamed like a little girl. Then when we landed, he was all tough and, you know. But I said, I heard you screaming like a little girl, man. Why? Because see, you can sit in class and you've heard this, but I'm going to share it again. The bottom line about this life is that you've got to be able to implement what you believe. That's why James almost didn't make it. Did you know that James almost didn't make it into the Bible? Because they had 5 criteria and they would go through those criteria. And James and Jude didn't make it the first time around because you have to meet certain criteria. But just so you know, the councils of Trent and Nicaea, they argued also about how many angels can stand on a head of a pin. So, how would you like to be in that meeting? Okay, but they're going to decide which books are in the Bible. So, but yeah. Now listen to me. This is what's critical about this life. What you believe has to come through in order for it to be supernatural. It's not just you believing by what you say. He said, James said, show me your faith by what you do, right? But then because of the King James, it says faith without works is dead. But then, all the word that's used there is misrepresenting what's really being said because that's not a good word to use. Faith without manifestation is dead. So when I met Jesus, he was the word. I wasn't, at the Word of Faith, they taught me how to work the word, and, so I was confessing all these scriptures and saying all these things and trying to tire God out so he would just give me what I wanted by confessing it. And all of a sudden, when I met Jesus personally, I saw that the Word was a person. He is the Word. And I'm not working him, he's working me. Yeah, and he's moving in me. So he wants to have full expression. So Paul, when he said, it's as though Christ has borrowed my body and is doing his ministry through me. He was compelled. He had compassion. He reached out just like Jesus did and healed the sick. He preached the gospel. But this morning, I just want you to be aware that if God gives you a word and he sends you somewhere, he wasn't planning on you failing. And you better not back off. It's like when I had jobs where I was armed. If I drew my pistol, there had to be one shot fired. Or you didn't draw your pistol. It had to be somebody at least limping. It's the same with when you decide you're going to jump out of the airplane. Everything's fine until you get up to 14,000 feet and the door opens and the guy yells all out. It's like, nah, I ain't coming. Hey, go. You can keep your $400. Well, what happens? See, that's what happens with us. If things get tough and hard, and the fight is on. The challenge is on. And this is a gate. And so the angels I saw coming in through this gate and going south, extending out everywhere. And God chooses certain places, posts. And in Phoenix, when we were in Phoenix, we would pray about 3 or 4 hours in our backyard. We made it like a little Wally world, like a park, in our backyard, and we would just pray. And we had these paths, and we made them flagstone and made it really nice. And I would just pray out there for hours, and God would meet me out there, and I didn't want to come in. And it was kind of cool because in Phoenix, mosquitoes, their wings actually just burn up. So we have no mosquitoes. There's nothing in the air, not even water. And it rains twice a year, But yeah, so it's 110 degrees with no humidity. It's really not really nice. So I'm out there and I'm praying, and all of a sudden, you know how when you're praying, maybe you don't, but it's going to happen. You pray and you're turning and you're praying in tongues, and you turn, and all of a sudden, the realm that you desire and are seeking and trying to enter into, for no reason, you walk right into it. You turn and you walk right into it while you're praying. When I did, my yard was full of beings that were lit up, angels. They were good angels, so don't write me. They were very good angels. The demons, very bad, very bad. Not good. To quote a famous person. Angels, awesome people. Demons, not so much. Yeah. So all of a sudden, I was heightened and aware. And, I'm just like you. I just got home from work and ate, but now I got to pray. I got to pray. But see, all of a sudden, it got from having to do something to seeing that you never know the next time that you go to pray where you're going to enter in and your eyes are going to be open. And God lets you in on what's happening. Okay, so I walked and I could feel myself walking through a crowd of people. But they were beings, they were lit up, and they were beautiful, and they were very big.
Many people go through life wishing they could understand the realm of the spirit and the warfare that goes on behind the scenes. In his brand new study guide and 3 CD set, The Notes of a Warrior, Volume 1, Dr. Kevin Zadai helps you to develop your ability to engage the enemy on every level. Kevin's brand new study guide and 3 CD set, The Notes of a Warrior, Volume 1, will help equip you to learn to recognize God's direction for your life, encounter clarity in knowing God's battle strategies against your enemies, exercise your authority as a believer, walk in increased discernment through the Holy Spirit's power, and much, much more. In this exclusive offer, Kevin also prays impartation prayers on each CD to help you in your advance against the enemy. Order today Kevin's brand new study guide and exclusive 3 CD set, The Notes of a Warrior Volume 1, for a donation of $29, US shipping and handling included. To order, call 888-340-1460 with offer code 1002 or go online to kevinzadai.com/offer. It's time to stand up for your rights as a Christian and give the devil a headache.
And I stopped and I asked one of them, I go, what's going on here? They go, well, actually, you're the only one in the northern sector that's praying right now. So we've made this our northern post for the city. So this is the command center for the northern sector. And I kid you not, this is what they said. They said, we're here, and this was Thursday night. We're here because tomorrow night, Benny Hinn is coming, and we're here to get everything ready. We're pushing out the darkness right now. Okay, so I went and I looked online, and sure enough, he's going to be at the convention center down, and I'm not promoting Benny Hinn. I'm just, he actually is a friend of mine. He just doesn't call me anymore. But do you understand, I'm looking at what God has done through people throughout the ages, and I'm not going to criticize anybody. But he spent an hour with me, and he changed my life. He helped me when he didn't have to, but he did it. Okay, all right. I got something from that. But see, I started to realize that, hey, listen, where you live and everything about your life, it's not just praying and feeling like nothing's happening. And then just, man, I could rather just go Kentucky Fried Chicken right now, and you don't want to, you don't feel anything. But the whole time, stuff is really happening. Yeah. Okay, so this is a northern gate for a country. And God has chosen it. You might not know why, just like you don't know why God chose you. Okay, so the process of implementing what you believe has to do with being fully convinced. Being fully convinced. So how do you get God to get you fully convinced that he is able? So what we do is we seek an experience in order to validate our belief, whereas God requires us to have faith, which in the Hebrew mind is trust based on a covenant. So the problem with you and with me is that I have had so many people promise me things and not keep their word that I can't imagine a Father God keeping his word, because down here, people don't keep their word at all. But see, the thing of it is, every day that I went to work, if I was 30 seconds late, I got fined $1,200. And it's amazing how you straighten up. You want to know why? Because you pay in advance to go somewhere from point A to point B. You're sitting on the jet, depending upon me to come to the jet, to take you where you need to go. You've paid in advance. And being late is not honoring other people's. It's not respecting other people.
Yeah, that's right.
And like when people are late for appointments with me, I already have other things scheduled. I have no time in between. So if they're late, I mean, I've done this. I've had appointments where people showed up late. I said, well, I got to go because I have another appointment, but I paid for your meal. See you later. Enjoy. And they just stare at me. I'm like, you don't understand. I'm booked up now until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And if I call somebody that they don't answer, well, it might be a week before I call them back, because I have pastors all over the world that want to talk to me. Okay. But see, I have to respect everybody. But if I don't draw boundaries, well, see this, you said, well, what's this have to do with faith? Well, I'm telling you, when God says something, he absolutely means it. Jesus doesn't joke around, because he could create another universe just by joking about it. If he said, are you limping today? If you weren't, you're going to. Do you understand? No, I don't know if you do. There's a fear of God. These angels, there's a fear of God around them. And, the bottom line is that the way that some of you are looking at me, you're like this is some new doctrine to you. But see, the thing of it is that this realm and the spirit of the world that controls this realm has dumbed you down. But it's been a very slow process. You're dull, but you don't know it. And then an angel shows up, and the next thing you know, oh my gosh, all this stuff is real. See, but you shouldn't have to depend upon an experience, an encounter to increase your faith. You should have faith, and then you encounter. See, I have continual encounters. I've had 3 or 4 this morning. And that's besides the person that tried to kill us on the road here. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about God encounters, not somebody trying to run us over. See, so the result of my faith is manifestation. I don't know if you're getting this yet, but see, don't seek the encounter.
Right.
Seek him, and he will show up. This is why you're not seeing manifestation. It's because you have no concept, because Sally is always late. And then you say, well, that's just Sally. Well, my company says, well, not anymore. She's gone. You can't do that. Oh, we just did. I'm serious. Where would you like your last check mailed? I'm serious. You do that 3 times in your career and you're done. Do you know how many people were left in my big class? 8 out of 33. All my friends got fired. They couldn't keep their word. You got it? Okay, so you're Jesus started his encounter with me. Now, I'm trying to help you get your healing here. But there's things that have to be adjusted. You think it's, you think it's one thing, but it's not. It's as simple as what's below your nose. Jesus walked up to me. I can't mess this up because he was right in front of me. And he said, I said that you will be held accountable for every idle word that comes out of your mouth. And I'm like, okay, nice to meet you too. Because he just walked right up and said that to me as soon as I left my body. I'm like, okay. And he came over and he whispered in my right ear, he goes, I meant that. And I was judged immediately about I was a talker. So now I hardly talk at all because I want my words to count. I'm a sniper, 1 shot, 1 kill. Okay, I had to readjust my personality. That is not just Kevin. The Bible, I can give you verse after verse where it says that when there are many words, there's sin. And the devil's involved. When you talk too much. Okay, but getting back to what Jesus is saying right now, he's saying that my Father's word is always good. It's always true. It's always going to happen, always going to work. However, we have a free will. Your free will means that you can be a gatekeeper, or you could just survive and let somebody else do all the work. Do you want to be a gatekeeper? In other words, do you want to be a centurion? Do you want to be someone who's assigned to do something for God and protect the assets of God? Because God is moving by his Spirit right now, and the mighty angels are here. But I didn't come back to have a party. Jesus didn't tell me go back and make money. He said, go back and tell them the truth about what you saw and what you heard. What I saw was a beautiful place that was created for us that was like the earth at one time. I saw music come by me. It had flavor. It had smell. It had color. There were these long tapestries that looked like they were about a mile long. It was the score, music that was a mile long, and there was no time. There was just horizontal increments, but there was no time, so it didn't have the dividing of time. So it wasn't 4/4 time, 3/4 time, 7/8 time. It was arrhythmical. And the notes danced as they flew by me. The song was beautiful. It was beautiful orchestrated, but it had smell, it had taste, it had color. And as the notes went up, they got lighter into the yellows, but they went down into the dark blues and purples when there was a deep note, and they were all dancing and they were just streaming by me. So I was standing there in paradise. And when that song was done, I looked and here comes another song. Everything was singing. Birds, like the animals, they want to talk to you. Some of them want to eat you, but that's because they're in a bad mood because they fell. I saw that creation fell with man and they're upset. They are groaning because all creation, it says, is groaning for the sons of God to be revealed because they want to be able to get back to where they were. They want to talk to you. They don't want to eat meat. There is no meat to eat in heaven because there's no death. Yeah, so get over it. So if you're going to eat your burger, do it now. Because there are no cows that are afraid of you up there. I don't even know if there are cows. I just know that. Anyway, okay, so your word has to count because God's word counts. And so what you do is you develop a relationship with the Father where you tell him, I believe you, Father. You become fully convinced. You start to see that I can't fail because I'm going to live forever with him. If I die here, it's a promotion. That's what I saw when I was in heaven. I was promoted. So when Jesus said, well done, thou good and faithful servant, but he didn't use the thou. But he did say that. When he did, immediately I saw that I was only operating on the earth at about 35% of what I could have. Immediately, he never said a word. I was judged. And he's smiling the whole time. See, I had been faithful, but had I done everything that I could have done for the Lord that was in my spirit, it was there. It was in the word, but I didn't have understanding because I didn't treasure hunt. I didn't dig. I didn't pray out the mysteries. I didn't keep the word before me. I didn't discern that the angels had brought a person to me to talk to. If you're part of our staff, everywhere we go, if we go into a restaurant, it'll be empty. Within 3 or 4 minutes, it'll be completely full because the angels are bringing in people. They told me they're going to do it because they think I'm going to stand up on a chair and start preaching. That's what they think. They don't think like we do. They're not afraid. They are told to minister for those who are going to inherit salvation. So they're bringing in the lost to where you are because they think that you're going to stand up and start preaching and tell them the news. That's the way they think. They hearken unto the voice of the Lord. The Lord has told them to minister for those who are going to inherit salvation. So they're with you, but they're going out. Now, this happened in different countries. And I remember being in Italy, and I was told I was going in 2022. This is back a couple years ago. That's what they told me. So one day the Lord said, call your manager, tell him to call Italy, tell him that you are available on the 3rd week of August of this year, and that's it. I go, this is a few years before they've invited me. He said, do it. So I did. So he sent the email. The guy is at his computer in Italy. The person who they were having a conference on the 3rd week of August, and the email said that the guy was canceling. The next email was me. It flipped the guy out. So we went, and we were in that restaurant with the pastor. And Jesus, I looked out, everything's smaller there. The food is really good, but everything's smaller. So you feel kind of constrained. Even down the streets, all the cars are like cars that you could pick up and put in your pocket. They're like these little, they're like barely wide enough to fit a person in, And so they show up at the airport. We have all these bags because we're going to be there for 3 weeks. And it was like a miracle. I don't know how we did it. But anyway, just to tell you, I don't seek encounters. I've never asked for an angel visitation. I've never asked for Jesus to appear to me, ever. But yet it's over 38 times he's appeared to me. I can't explain that. And if you don't believe me, I totally understand. I wouldn't believe either. But, I do believe because he's convinced me. He's apprehended me. And that's where you got to be, to where you're apprehended. So I looked out at the little tables, and it's a 5-star gourmet restaurant. I'm like, dear Lord, he could have just got me a burger, Oh, they don't have burgers there, No. So I look out, and I kid you not, Jesus walks by and stands in front of the door of the restaurant on the street. I mean, he just as clear as anybody. And I'm like, no. Because I know what, because this has happened so many times. It probably happened about 6 times. That I know what this means. If he has to show up himself and not an angel, this is like serious stuff. So I'm looking at this guy, and I'm looking over his shoulder, and there's Jesus. I'm like, I can't. Because I don't know how this guy believes. Hey, what am I going to do? Tell him, hey, Jesus needs to talk to me. I'll be right back. I'm serious. Kathy, am I right? She lives with me. She knows. I mean, Jesus walks into our bedroom and says, I need to talk to you, Kevin. I go, well, go ahead. He goes, no, just you alone. And he takes me to the office. I'm like, come on, can't you just tell me right now? And then he says, ask me why I had to write letters to the 7 pastors of the 7 churches. I go, okay, just tell me. He goes, ask me. He's right there. I'm like, okay, why did you have to? He's like that. He said, because they weren't listening to me. I go, oh, okay. Well, so here we are. And he said, I need to talk to you. I go, I can't. He goes, tell him you have to go to the bathroom. That's what he said. I said, hey, I need to excuse myself for a minute. I got to go to the restroom. And he goes, it's right back there. So I went in there, and I don't know how he did it, but Jesus is in there. And he starts talking to me about this pastor, starts talking to me about the whole thing while I'm there. And he says, you tell him this, you tell him this, you tell him this. I didn't know that I was never coming back again. You know, and they invited me back, and then they canceled me. So I never did go back. But they would have me back all the time, and then they just cancel me. Okay, so I'm sitting there. I'm standing there, and I come back out, and I tell him. So I think that's when I just ministered to him, right, what the Lord said. And the power of God hit him, and he just got overwhelmed. And then it was powerful for the next 3 weeks. You want to know how powerful it was? See, because it was God. But I'll probably never go back there again. It was just a one time. You know what happened? Just to show you what's about to open up for you in your life. I'm standing up talking to the people in Pescara, where we had a 2-week convention thing, conference or whatever it was, or it was like 10 days or whatever. So, they're translating into Italian, but here's the thing. These are Catholics. So the Vatican sent down a priest to do the Mass for an hour before I speak. So I'm sitting back there for an hour. The priest from the Vatican comes back and goes, you're up. You're next. This went on for the whole week, right? And this guy's like a big teddy bear. I just loved him. So I noticed when I was speaking, he's back there at the door listening. And he raises his hands. And he's crying. So when I got back there, he said, can you pray for me? I have a lot of intestinal problems. I said, sure. And I prayed for him. And when he looked back up, he looked above me like this with a fearful look on his face. And he started stepping back and praying in another language. He said, do you know that you have a 10-foot angel? I go, yeah, he's with me all the time. I'm serious. Okay, that's just a start. Next session, I'm up there, and the Lord says to me audibly, he said, see those 2 boys right there on the second row? You're giving them the whole offering for the whole trip, for the 2 weeks. Everything, right? The whole thing. They had bicycles to get there. They had bicycles. They were like 17 and 18. The Lord says, thus saith the Lord, these 2 are evangelists, will go from the south to the north of Italy, evangelizing the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the pastor, like, you're kidding. You're giving it. Yeah. I said, just split it up between those 2. He couldn't believe it, because people hold on to money. A couple days later, I get an invite to the Vatican. That boy was the son of the right hand of the Pope for all the charismatic movement in the world. He called his dad. He said, Dad, you got to meet this guy. So the next thing you know, we're flying to Rome. We're having dinner with this guy, and he's sitting there weeping as I'm telling my story. And he goes, the world is open to you. You just say the word, and I will open every door in the world to you in the Catholic Church. I have the keys to every church. I'm like, how does this happen? They called me before we came. They said, what do you want to eat? I said, I want real spaghetti and meatballs. They said, no problem. They cooked the sauce all day. So